If Adelaide wins the hosting rights for the next UN climate summit, the COP, it would cost the government, therefore the taxpayer, at least $1 billion. That's what the AFR is reporting, and that's the Albanese government's own estimates. Joining us live, the Nationals leader David Littleproud. That's a hefty bill, David, and a big WTF is what I reckon a lot of folks would be saying to that.
Yeah, this is pure insanity for nothing more than a vanity project for Anthony Albanese and Chris Bowen to try and run around on the world stage all at the Australian taxpayers' expense. There are Australians last night that could not afford to put dinner on the table. And we are going to flit away more than $1 billion on a couple of week conference to be able to grandstand for Anthony Albanese, to be able to think that he can mix it with the rest of the world. That shouldn't be at the taxpayers' expense. And if Turkey still wants it, well, they should have it. If they want to spend $1 billion on this, I think this just goes to the heart of how this government is out of touch. They're going to spend $9 trillion on their net zero by 2050 race. You're just going to add another lazy billion in their minds onto that. This is not going to achieve anything other than cost Australian taxpayers. There are bigger priorities. They are out of touch in understanding what their net zero plan is doing to Australians through their energy bill. But now to flit away another $1 billion just for a vanity exercise, for them to stand on the world stage, to create a world stage for them to stand on, is pure insanity.
I mean, I know you're against it. I mean, and a lot of folks would be wondering why you would do that on that money. I don't know how you'd even come to that cost. It's, I guess, security and transport, accommodation, etc. But $1 billion, that's a huge whack. And I'm not even sure what sort of return you'd get on that investment. There's some talk as well about maybe a 50-50 split with Turkey. I mean, would that even change your view in the slightest?
Well, you've got to ask, you're going to spend $1 billion to get what value? What are we talking about? The world is already committed to reducing emissions. We have framework where the world has to give its targets every 5 years, and yet 128 of those countries still haven't handed over their 2035 target that was due back in March. But the reality is this has become bigger than Ben-Hur. That's not doing anything that's adding any value to what the world's already agreed to, only in essence to grandstand and create a platform for those that want to have a vanity project at the taxpayers' expense. I mean, I think we've got to get back to some common sense, go back to some reality of what we're asking the Australian taxpayer to fund. And I don't think this is good value for money. I think we can actually, when you have Australians that can't afford to have dinner tonight, I think this government's priorities are all wrong, and we could spend that billion or even $500 million in a lot better ways. That'd build you a hospital somewhere across this country over the next 5 years instead of spending it on a conference that goes for 2 weeks.
All right, moving on, David. Are you front-running the opposition at the moment?
No, we, after the last election, made it very clear, as the Liberal Party did, they'd both review their climate and energy policies. We got to a juncture on the weekend where we finalised that. We believe that Labor's net zero plan, the $9 trillion net zero plan, can be done in a cheaper, better, fairer way. And we put forward an alternative that still reduces emissions, still lives up to our international commitments, but only at a fraction of the cost. And making sure that we do our bit internationally. When we're only 1.1% of global emissions, why would we streak ahead? We don't want to be a laggard, but we should do our fair share. And we should understand we can't mitigate all the world's emissions here in Australia because we're only 1.1% emissions. Why wouldn't we pivot into adaptation to protect our environment and our climate here in Australia, Australian way? We're just saying, let's run the rule against our policy and Labor's $9 trillion net zero policy and see where the Australian people come to. Now, where the Liberal Party will get to their position, and hopefully once that's done, we'll sit down and we'll get to hopefully to a consensus.
All right. Are your decisions, though, making Susan Lee look weak as leader? No,
we had an agreement when obviously the coalition was reformed after the Liberal Party agreed to our 4 demands. They had a party room meeting to accept those four policy conditions. We made it clear that when all the other policies were to be thrown out and start from scratch, that we would start our process as they would individually on climate and energy. And the fact is we've been very upfront about that. In fact, also upfront about what we're going to look like once the Liberal Party gets to their position. We're very calm. We're very relaxed about where the Liberal Party may get to. We'll work through that process because there is structure and process to what we're going to do moving forward.
Are you disappointed, though, I mean, at what's going on within the Libs at the moment? And I suppose you've played a part with the Liberal infighting by making your net zero call early. But you've got this announcement by Michelle Bullock yesterday that basically says the rate cutting cycle's over. The next move might be a rise. There's these government bailouts of huge energy companies at the moment. Are you missing an opportunity to be attacking the government on this while the coalition is eating itself?
Well, the election's not this Saturday. It's 2 years away, and the fundamentals, as I've said straight after the election, haven't changed. Anthony Albanese is driving this country over a cliff, an economic cliff, a social cliff, and that will be what will be judged in about 2.5 years' time. I can't control the personalities of the Liberal Party and how they act. Their target market at the moment around policy on climate and energy actually is within their party room. It's not the Australian people. And that's why it'd be wise to confine their criticisms or enthusiasm for one policy or another to within the party room. My party room was able to do that and get to a juncture. And now we're just going to sit back and allow them the time and space. I'm not going to give a running commentary. I'm going to stay out of it because that's what leadership is, to allow them the time and space to get to a position.
Is Barnaby back in the Nats?
Well, he's still a National Party member and is welcome back into our party room.
You hugged it out?
Anytime. We haven't hugged it out, but I have no animosity towards Barnaby Joyce, and I hope that he comes back. And it was a shame that he wasn't there on Sunday to make a contribution on a historic day. When 4 years ago we got to a position to support a net zero position with Scott Morrison. It would have been great that he would have been in the room to make that decision with us. It was a unanimous decision by the party room, which I think speaks volumes about where and how our party room addressed this very complex issue.
All right. David Littleproud, the Nationals leader. Appreciate it as always. Thank you.